Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. I'm Liz Adams. I'm with CRL Associates. Maria Garcia-Berry is at her son's graduation from University of Michigan tonight, so she will not be joining us. And Terrence is stuck in traffic, which I think a few people have just experienced, being stuck in traffic.
Sign of progress.
It is. The sign of progress, says Kelly Lead. We're going to just go ahead and get started on the agenda, and then as Terrence arrives, we will have him take over the meeting. Because Kelly Lead has to get to a baseball game for his son, we're going to start with him so that he can make his report and then be on his way. So Kelly, why don't you give us your update?
Great, and thank you. I coach my son's 10-year-old baseball team, so we have a heated rivalry tonight. I have some strategery to deal with how we put 10-year-old boys in the right place. So a lot going on the project front through the Mayor's Office of the National Western Center, so let me give you that kind of high-level overview. Again, a lot related around getting the resources in place to advance the project. So these are in no particular order. First and foremost is, again, our team, CH2M Hill, that was hired late last year, that's now embedded in the National Western Center offices. Been with us since January to translate all the historical documents that this committee has been so involved in, and turning those into scope, schedule, and budget for the program, and that's moving along nicely. Our intent is to publicly issue scope, schedule, and budget in July, sometime in probably late July, early August for the program, and there'll be, over the course of the next several months, we'll have the team share the kind of the component parts of what that looks like and what that means for this committee in terms of input and just understanding how we move the project forward. So that's moving along nicely. The second is demolition, which is another sign of progress. We are issuing our demolition package for the campus tomorrow, I believe, is the day that's going to hit the street. And that's all about how we manage the takedown of facilities that we don't need today and facilities that will come down later. But that will hit the street. Again, I think tomorrow is the date. And then the goal is to have them on board around September. And again, we'll have the team report out on specific demolition components. But the idea is we will be tearing down facilities as early as this fall along Brighton Boulevard to prepare for the Brighton Boulevard improvements, and then some interior tear downs of some of the larger buildings that are not needed for the National Western later this year. And I'm happy to report is we're going to have a celebration for this committee and the community on November 7th of this year, which is the 2-year anniversary of 2C passing, where we'll tear one of the big buildings down and really starting to demonstrate progress around the program. So the demo package is a part of that effort. The next is campus placemaking. So Ann Hayes, I don't see Ann. Ann's here. She's representing the committee on the selection process. We had 7 proposals received for that. We are down to 4 finalists that will be interviewed on May 4th. And the goal is to walk out of there with a selected firm. So I think tonight you guys are going to have some conversation about potential questions to ask the firms towards that selection. And then once the selected firm is identified, there's obviously a contracting process we have to go through at the city level. But the intent would be is to lay out a schedule that would start later this summer for all the work that this committee will need to be involved in terms of advancing the master plan to the next level of detail. So that's going to be exciting as we think about that. The last piece I have is we had received some money from the state around what we call the historic structural assessment of the 1909 Stadium Arena. That is now moving forward for a procurement to get a firm on board as part of assessing the 1909 building for an adaptive reuse and bringing that building back to its 1909 conditions, pulling all that paint off the building, restoring the red brick, pulling the Hall of Education and Expo Hall components off the building face. So that work will begin this summer. And then the last is we will do some branding work around the campus this summer that will start to put in motion the brand, what we're going to call the campus and how it looks and feels, and all the associated storytelling that will happen as part of the new website and social media platform, so that we can inform the public about the program as a whole. So a lot on tap out of the National Western Center projects office, and looking forward to actually getting the placemaking going, because for those of you that were, many of you were involved in the master planning process. I mean, literally Eric Anderson came back almost, every month and was leading discussions around and getting feedback from this committee. So that will begin again later this summer. Probably August is when they'll start. And then we've got at least a year's worth of work plus, if not more, to do with that group to advance the plan. So that's it.
How about this? We'll go double. Can you hear from, yeah. So does anybody have any questions for Kelly, because he is going to be leaving, so any questions? Okay. Dave,
Yes,
I'm going to give you the microphone just.
Okay. Kelly, did you guys acquire Tom Anthony's building?
Oh, so good. Yeah, let me just do a quick land acquisition. So we are. He will be out officially the end of this month. And it was supposed to be earlier, but we granted him an extension. But he will be out at the end of the month, and we will be securing that facility once he's out. And overall, of the 38 private parcels we have to acquire to fulfill the vision of the master plan. I think that at the end of March, we were at 23 of the parcels were under some level of control by the city. Over the last just even month, we've made some additional acquisitions. So at next month's CAC, I'll be able to give you an updated assessment on land acquisition. But I think we're sitting at about 63% of the total parcels we need to acquire, private parcels, to finish the master plan.
Are the financials of those acquisitions public information?
Not until we're done with all 38 acquisitions.
Any other questions? Yeah, AE, if you'll use the microphone.
Here,
just
I'll-
for-
One quick question regarding demolition. So many moons away, we talked about artifacts, like preserving artifacts. And so if you can comment on that, or maybe we can think about that. Secondly, if there's a result, or if there's any progress on the railroad thingy, there may not be. And third,
I was trying to forget the railroad.
I know, well, we know. And then third, regarding the developing relationships with the network of the agriculture industry around the state and the city and the country, there are conversations going on where the NWC-NUCO is reporting out to invitational groups in the industry about opportunities that are coming. And I would request that the NUCO office now direct more information into how that networking is going and if it's gelling in particular directions. I think part of what we're doing is forming a basis for eventual partnerships and people that come in with as tenants and that kind of a thing. So I kind of feel like I'd like this advisory group to see more of who the NUCO is starting to court, or what your strategies are. This stems partly from the first action. One of the actions is sending out a list of 100, well, it's actually 140, but I think 120 were listed at NUCO. So anyway, that's for ongoing, but I just want to draw it out a little bit. Okay.
Sure. So you're going to make me talk about railroads. And we're talking specifically about the short line, which is the Denver Rock Island. We sent them a term sheet. We asked them to respond to that term sheet by the end of March. They asked for an extension. This was on the second to the last day of March. They asked for an extension until April 17th. April 17th came and went without no response from the Rock Island. We subsequently sent a letter to them electronically on that following Monday, which I would believe was the 18th, somewhere around there, basically telling them that the term sheet was no longer, we were essentially pulling back the term sheet that we had offered to them, and that we will begin the legal proceedings under the Surface Transportation Board for what's called, I'm going to get this wrong, adverse disruption or disturbance, something like, there's a legal term around the Surface Transportation Board that we have to go through that will look to vacate the river spur and consolidate it down the center of the line legally. And I will tell you that that was at their choice. We felt we gave them more than enough time, so we are proceeding down a legal course now to consolidate that line, keeping the spur or the company in place and serving those customers to the north of the site, but now we are going to do that legally. So I can't tell you today what that means in terms of, but there's a very deliberate process we'll go through with the rail company relative to the Surface Transportation Board, and we will be actively engaging and reaching out to the companies served by Denver Rock Island to let them know what the city's position is on both keeping Denver Rock Island here and on the site, but what it means to the project.
Is there room for an amicus brief from this group, or is there anything we can do that can...
You know, I'm happy. I mean, we just had a conversation with attorneys about that process, and we're all learning this together. I mean, this is, in some respects, a very historical process on rail. So let me talk to our team about how we can walk this committee through what that looks like, but it is what it is.
So Kelly, there's going to be a lot of digging and demolition in a contaminated site. I think that the entire campus is part of the Superfund OU2 site, as far as I know, and so there's a lot of environmental challenges. There's currently a community advisory group with the EPA for the Global Landing outfall site. How are you monitoring the as you dig in this Superfund site, and how are you monitoring that? Well, we sort of have a process underway for Global Landing outfall, but I think the Coliseum parking lot was the former site of the Omaha and Grant smelters. So how is that being addressed and monitored and ensured to be safe?
So we will not be touching the Coliseum site for the foreseeable future. The Coliseum building and the Coliseum site continues to serve as the city's arena because we don't have a new arena built. The focus of our demolition are two components. That's a great question. One is just bringing the structures down to grade, right? And the selected demolition team would be obligated to follow all city and state requirements relative to bringing those structures down, remediating them, and getting those facilities to grade. Once we start subsurface demolition, which will be once we build new buildings, that's a whole separate process. So right now the function is getting buildings down to existing grade. Correct, just raising them to existing grade. And again, they'll have to follow all the associated requirements under both city and state law.
Okay.
But happy to bring, I mean, once we move past just demolition, we'll certainly bring forward whatever our plan's going to be, because that's going to really be driven by our phasing plan for the sites, which will again start probably somewhere around the river and move southeast across the site. The yards will be the first thing we do. But we're not going to be touching the Coliseum site for for the foreseeable
But
future.
nevertheless, the future campus is part of, I believe, OU.
It's part of a larger designation. Obviously, the bulk of those issues are located on the Coliseum site, but absolutely, I mean, through our environmental health department, we will make sure that we come back to you once that selected demo contractor is selected to walk you through their plan and how they're going to mitigate the associated process they have to go through to make sure that we do it in an appropriate way. But without getting into specifics, obviously our first focus is the properties along Brighton Boulevard to do the Brighton Boulevard improvements. Then we'll move inboard later in the year to tear down the International Paper Building and the SHPO building, which has been vacated, which will be the future home of Phase 2 facilities. So right now, the focus of demo will be on Brighton Boulevard. Okay, I'm only on, that was question 1. I'm on question 2, the engagement of our outreach. So a year ago, summer this last year, we sent out 100 plus letters to ag associations across the country. And out of that came a series of follow-up meetings. We will probably send out a follow-up letter to ag associations just to update them on our progress relative to the project, just to keep them informed. There's been a number of ag associations, many of them of which are located in Colorado, that have shown an interest in maybe relocating back to this site, as it evolves for office space. And we continue to talk to them about that. It will be interesting. I don't think CSU is here tonight. About a month ago, Tony Frank, CSU, and Denver Water have partnered with Tom Vilsack, the former Secretary of Education under the Obama administration, and I think it'll be interesting to see as Tom gets involved in this project, his network, his global network of folks that he met while he served as the longest serving Secretary of Ag in modern history, how that starts to impact folks that are interested in the site, both locally and globally. But absolutely happy to keep you informed as we start to do the next round of information. But at this point, until we get campus placemaking started, I mean, other than just keeping people generally informed about where we are in the program, there's not a lot more to talk about in terms of what future relationships might look like.
And that's true with the private partnerships as well?
That is correct. Yeah. I mean, I will tell you today, I can't tell you who, but there are a lot of people, private sector companies, paying attention to this project, and this happened to be a small company located here in the state that would love to relocate into the Denver region, and is in the food-based business and is very much paying attention to this project and wants to be associated with it, and I think we'll see more of those. So we'll keep you informed as we can as those evolve over the course of time. What was your third question, sorry?
I think you answered, well, the artifacts.
Oh, the artifacts, sure.
That's the potential artifact.
Yeah, so related to that, this is where Historic Denver gets back involved, and History Colorado. I'm working very closely with all those kind of historic organizations. Part of demolition will absolutely be focused on anything that generates artifacts that can be repurposed or reused or can be used in terms of storytelling, will very much be a part of our demolition component, so that we're just not disposing of things. That if there are bricks or there are things that are historic to the site, we are going to figure out a way to reuse those or repurpose those things in the ultimate redevelopment site.
I'd like to request that John Zapian walk all of the acreage with a marker and put, for generations of working there, circle everything that might be might tell a story.
I'll go, but I'll be damned if I don't walk.
Okay,
We will get a golf cart. We will rent a golf cart the day we do that.
No, I think I'll bring a horse in from our ranch for John.
Sure, absolutely. But I mean, your point's well taken. I mean, I think we're gonna do our darndest to make sure that, to the extent there are historic components, and to the extent they're that they can get reused, we will figure out a way to reuse them.
So I know we all enjoy having Kelly here, but Kelly has to go be Coach Kelly.
Yes,
for a baseball game. He's the Rockies' new first base coach.
Ooh, I just got a raise.
Well, yeah, I was trying to help you out here. So we're going to go over to Ron from the Western Stock Show Association.
I just want to see Kelly on the diamond in his cowboy boots.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Hope you change the cowboy hat, though. This last weekend, I should say weekend before last, we just got done with the Rodeo All-Star. It was a big success. We had a great turnout, great weather. So moving forward from that, our next big project that National Western's working on, besides all the various complex shows that's going on, is the Denver County Fair, which will be at the end of July. And hope you all get excited about it and get everybody involved and participating. Other than that, really, from our construction standpoint, you know, we're just doing a lot of planning, meeting with various agencies within the city and trying to keep everything we can on track. So moving forward from that aspect, the rest of it is business as usual.
Thank you. Any questions for Ron? Okay, hey, David. What was that?
What happened to the music venue that was here last year?
You know, you're talking about Riot Fest? Riot Fest, the person that was doing the Denver Riot Fest unfortunately passed away at a very young age. And they have decided that because of that, and they don't really have anyone in place, that they're going to pass on Denver this year and try to get, you know, they're still doing their one in Chicago, but because of the death of the Denver contact, they just don't feel that they can pull it together in a way that would be successful. So, but they do look forward, you know, they are looking forward to coming back in 18.
Anything else for Ron? Hey, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
We won't have a report from CSU. Jocelyn has a family issue and won't be able to join us this evening. So we'll go to Tanya, who's playing the role of Nancy from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science.
If you'll pass your mic around to her, that'll be great.
Turned red on me.
Uh-oh.
Oh, here, just
Hi, my name is Tanya Breeling with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And we have Vikings now open at the museum. It's a great exhibit. Thank you. That is open through August 13th, so please stop by and see us. We also have a wonderful celebration this weekend on Sunday with Dia del Nino and many partners that will be around the table having wonderful performances, food, and lots of fun interaction. We had about 18,000 folks come out last year, so we're anticipating a similar number. And then we also have the opportunity, we'll be out at fairs and festivals this summer. So we'll be out at Pride Fest and Juneteenth and Fiestas Patrias. So come out and see us while we're out in the community as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Tanya? Okay, I don't think we have anyone from History Colorado, so we'll just pass right on over them. Anna Jones and NDCC. And I apologize for being late with the Brighton stuff. I had to detour. It took a half hour to get from downtown out here, which normally is only like a 10-minute drive. It's kind of crazy. Someone should talk to the city about this.
Sure.
I think it's actually an Anna thing. Oh, go ahead. I was just blaming you for the traffic on Brighton.
Oh, well, I don't know whose idea that was, but I mean, I actually got stuck in it too, sort of, I was feeling a little ashamed of myself, but I wanted to just thank you, Liz, for putting me up in the agenda. Last month rather, we talked about the 47th in York video. We didn't have time to get to it, so we wanted to be able to show it to all of you here now. This is the video that has been put together with great help and assistance from the Swansea Elementary School community and Anne Elizabeth, who's also helped with that, so thank you. And we are using this as one of our tools in promoting the 47th and York effort with the GEO Bond initiative that's currently under review with the city. So it's a $12 million project. We have about $3 million raised toward it. And I think everybody's aware of the importance of this initiative. We have the NDCC recently retained the services of Wilson engineering firm to help bring the bridge along the 30% design. So we're moving the process through, knowing we don't have full budget, but we want to keep it. We want to keep it going, and we just wanted to share this. It's less than 2 minutes, and we're really proud of this. We think it's a great video. So thanks. Cross your fingers, it works.
Our school serves almost 40% of our students have to cross those tracks.
A veces está atravesado y si dura
director from NDCC.
Attendance is a big issue for us in general. An hour and more adds up. So it's just an inherent situation, and it certainly impacts their education here.
The kids that we have seen, it's people, unfortunately, they're in a hurry, they cross between the wagons.
People have already been complaining about kids, and even sometimes parents jumping over to the cars.
¿Qué pasaría si aquí te construyeran un puente para que puedas pasar del otro lado? ¿Te ayudaría eso?
Sí, porque después todas las personas podrán pasar y no llegar tarde a la escuela o a sus trabajos.
The bridge means safety for the kids. For every single kid. Kids should be safe to cross the train tracks every single day.
So that's it, and we hope it's pulling at the heartstrings of all of the people who are culling through many, many projects right now to get us on the GEO list.
Are you okay with me posting that on the CAC site so people could pull it up and watch it again?
Please, we would love it, yes, and we'd love to post it on anybody's website who is interested.
So if you would copy that over to my computer, then I'll just, I'll post it, okay?
Great, Ann, Elizabeth?
Update as of the GEO bond transportation and mobility committee meeting tonight. As of tonight, this is on the first bucket priority at $9 million. So it's perking through rapidly. So.
Okay, yay, that's great news. Thank you. All right, thanks everybody.
Any other questions for Anna? Okay, good. She has to leave pretty quickly.
Just one quick.
I think we beat your quota for the year already.
No,
go ahead.
I'll catch her later.
No, go ahead, John. I'm just giving you brief.
Do you see any problem in the competition that's building up on the bond projects, the various projects from other parts of the city? I mean, I read in the paper the other morning where they pitted, I believe it was Westwood, with the promenade on the Platte River behind. Do you see a project being mixed out because of the competitive?
I think this project has a very solid chance at moving forward. And yeah, there is lots of competition because we're talking about, I think it's $2 billion worth of projects for, a fraction of that in available dollars. So, but I do think that in terms of looking at the amount of support we have from community, the amount of support we have from the 6 and 12-year CIP plans, from City Council, and the amount of legwork that staff has done internally, I'm very hopeful. Hopeful in that kind of a way that that the critical GES projects will move forward.
So I would just tell people that I happen to be a director at large of the Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation group. It is basically an umbrella organization of all RNOs of the city. Not all RNOs, we have about 100 members, but we are hosting our May delegate meeting at the Holy Transfiguration Church on East 47th Avenue by Argo Park. The second Saturday of May, I think it's May 13th, beginning at 8:30 in the morning, and the topic of discussion will be the GO bonds. Our president is on the executive committee, J.J. Neiman, and so he and I will be kind of leading this discussion, but it's about the GO bonds and what is in there for GES, for Gloveville, Elyria, Swansea. So that's kind of the focus. I encourage anybody to come to that meeting. Maybe we should put this on the website of the
CAC also. But that should be a good discussion with one of the people that is actually on the executive committee for the Go Bonds. So please come if you can.
And we'll get it on the website for the CAC.
That's great. Thanks, Terrence.
Any other questions for Anna?
Can I make one last comment? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Washington Street open house is on Wednesday. Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30 at Garden Place. So it's the first public meeting on the Washington Street corridor study. So please come if you can. Thanks. We'll get that information to Liz.
Anything else for Anna? Thank you, Anna. Liz left me a note that I need to have the program management team from the city introduce themselves. And other city staff. I see Michael Sapp, that alum of that fine institution called Morehouse College.
Well, I'm happy to introduce myself, but well, for the record, my name is Michael Sapp, work in the NDCC office as well as the Mayor's Office at the National Western Center. And it is always a pleasure to be at CAC. Thank you.
And where did you go to college?
I went to Morehouse College.
Thank you.
Georgia.
Terrence, where'd you go?
Morehouse.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Leon. I am the Communications Director for NDCC. And before we moved from NDCC, we have an announcement, one more announcement to make. We are very pleased to have hired a new staff member. His name is Will Chan, and he's the Director of Economic Mobility for NDCC as well as NUCO. And I would like for you to welcome him. He's an amazing professional coming from the Denver Public Library. We're very happy to have Will. He comes again from the Denver Public Library, where he has single-handedly built a program around immigrant and refugee populations, and he has a wonderful opportunity here in the community, so I'm going to let him give you a little bit of himself.
Hi everyone, thanks for the warm introduction. I'm so excited to be here and join this wonderful team. I'm excited to work with residents, businesses, and other partners throughout the city to really build up equitable options for economic mobility and workforce development and many other new programs coming down the pipeline. So excited to work with you all soon.
Welcome, Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Patrick O'Keefe. I'm the program manager for the National Western Center project, working for the city and other partners. We have a new person here. Did you know you're going to be introduced? Well, Liz just told me you were. So, Marcy is our new communications strategist. That sounds impressive. All right. Programs comms director, and she comes out with a long history from the construction industry and construction projects. So welcome, Marcy.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I've met everybody here. I'm Willie Franklin. I with CH2M, I'm part of the CH2M program management team. And my function is Director of Workforce Development and Business Engagement. I look forward to working with everyone in this room.
And I'm Karen Nakandakari, and I get to work alongside with Willie in regards to workforce development also.
I think you guys know me. Erica Martinez, and I do communications for the National Western Center.
Is that everybody?
That's everybody.
Oh, okay. Thank you all. We're going to transition to discussion of station names for the new station right up the road here.
So I did put out a request, as you guys all might remember, at the last meeting we had an RTD representative here to talk about the name of the station and the possibility of changing or adding to that name. We had a discussion at that point, and then you all requested that I sent out a request for any other ideas for names. I got 2 responses, and both of them involved asking that the name include the name Elyria, like the National Western Center at Elyria, or we'd have to figure out how RTD would need to word it, but wanted to open up the floor right now for a brief discussion if anyone else has any other suggested names because Kelly has made it very clear that he is willing to, the city would have to make this request. That request would come from the Office of the National Western Center. And now is the time to make that request, because once they start printing signs and materials, it becomes an expense that the city would have to bear, because it would be a name change, because it is currently called National Western Center. But they are open to the idea of taking a request to the board to add Elyria to that name. So is there other discussion, or could we do sort of, if you want to discuss a little bit, and then we can kind of get a sense of the group and decide whether to forward that and request Kelly begin that process. So do we have comments from people?
Did you say you got 2 names?
No, just 2 people, both Elyria.
I didn't hear what the name was.
Add Elyria to National Western Center, yeah.
Is this on? Elyria was established long before the National Western. Keeping that in mind, if you could add like Elyria established in 1886. Yeah, that says 1886 it was established. The National Western was established in what, 1909? So I mean, if there's some way you can work it in, there's a lot of history here in Elyria. And one piece I want to bring up, Max Baer, the world champion boxer, grew up in Elyria way back in 1934, 36. I mean, he did kill 2 guys in a ring, but he did come from Elyria. There's a lot of history going. You kind of don't want to pass over.
Okay, any other comment?
You can't respond to that. No. John.
I would suggest that we include the name Elyria into the name process, which is, I understand it's got to be done, damn it. If it was my way, I'd go out and paint the sign, hang it up. But you don't do things like that anymore, especially. Work it out to include Elyria the best way you can.
It's actually called graffiti art now. Just saying.
That's quite good.
Right now, we're sitting on Elyria ground. This was Elyria, and then the stock show will have to always be at Elyria, and the post office will be in the Elyria area. So this is Elyria. I think it's the proper name.
So are we all in consensus that we'll have Kelly request RTD to add Elyria to the station name in some way, shape, fashion, or form? Okay, you got that, Liz?
What's the current name?
National Western Center.
And it may have the cross streets as well, I can't remember, but, so it would add Elyria and take away probably the cross streets. Okay.
So we're going to move to, actually I have to tell you this because I was in a meeting today, and I think you all will find this interesting since we're talking about economic development and demographics. I was at an economic development meeting. I've just been shocked by this all day, so I have to share it. I found out that today that Denver has just been named the 3rd most appealing city to hipsters.
Cool.
I don't know what that means, or how they exactly define hipsters, but they're defined differently than millennials. So we have a lot of man buns and plaid shirts and skinny jeans in Denver, apparently. And a beard.
Lots of beards.
But no skinny jeans. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because I was actually dumbfounded by it. Okay, that's my factoid for the year. So we're going to...
So does that mean Dave and John are both hipsters?
Oh, you know, Dave Valetsky and John Sapien were the original hipsters. Candy.
I just had a quick idea about the name real quick that I didn't want to lose. If there's a way, instead of, because people would be thrown off if you put the number on there, like the year Elyria was established, but if you did National Western Center at Historic Elyria,
I think that
Ooh.
could undo some of the harm that was done when we were denied historic designation.
I like historical, I like that. Okay, we'll go with that. Good call. So Liz is going to lead a discussion along with Ann Hayes on brainstorming on questions for the placemaking RFP. And as you remember, last month we elected Ann to be our representative to the placemaking RFP selection committee. So I'll hand it over to
I'll start and then I'll...
Liz.
Yeah, to somebody. Okay, so just a refresher, remember we had a discussion at the last meeting about the campus placemaking RFQ, and Kelly alluded to it. They're going to be next week. We have meetings, and your representative is Ann Hayes. What I've done is passed out again the summary of the placemaking RFQ, and I think those have already gone around. Yep. So, and then Ann has drafted some questions, some ideas for herself, that she's thought about, that I wanted you guys to take a look at. I'm going to go ahead and pull those up on the screen, and then I think it would be great if we could just have a conversation with Ann, and I'll let you give a little bit of intro and thoughts on this process and how you want to, how you want to go about it. So.
Well, I'll give you an update on where we are in the process to the extent I can. I can't reveal who the contenders are. That's what I was asking Kelly when he was leaving. But I can say that we started out with 7, and we're now down to 4. So originally, they were going to shortlist to 3, but the 4th was so close to the 3rd that it didn't seem right to just drop them from a pure number point of view. So, and I will tell you, I think that the 4 that have been shortlisted are really good, they're really good contenders. I don't say it's not one company, they're teams of people. The proposals involve teams of people. So there's lots of people, there's lots of content. It was, books this thick, 7 books this thick that we all had to go through and then categorize, our selection criteria, put our numbers in. So it was a good discussion. We met twice, and we narrowed it down to 4. And then next week is going to be the interviews. And of course, the interviews are really important because then you get to see personalities and people respond to these questions, and you get to see how they answer the questions. So, I'm focused as a representative of this group, I'm focused on the outreach. And there's other people who are asking other questions, CSU, National Western, they're all on the selection committee, they're focused on other things. But I'm focused on how is the outreach going to work for us. And so these are just 3 suggestions, just to get us started. I didn't want to just come in here cold. And let me just tell you my thought process on these suggestions. The first one is there are lots of stakeholders. This group and the neighborhoods are stakeholders, but there's other stakeholders, and there may be competing needs and wants from all of those stakeholders. And I am very curious as to how the teams will take all of the needs and wants from everyone and prioritize them. So I want to hear how they're going to do that, because they gotta do some prioritization, and I think it's important to know their thought process on that. The other thing is that in any outreach exercise, they can have a meeting and they can ask people to give feedback. But I think it's extremely important for there to be a feedback loop so that we can double check to make sure that when we tell them something, that they heard what we told them. So then they need to come back to us and say, this is what we heard you say. Are we right? So I think that's an important part of the process. And I think that can happen because there's certainly not going to be one meeting, public meeting. There's going to be lots of public meetings. But I think in every one of those public meetings, they need to reiterate what happened or what they heard in the previous one, so that we're always on track with what we're telling them and that they're feeding back to us. And then the third question is one to say, you know, when you're doing public outreach, it's not just about saying, what do you want there? And I got this idea actually from one of the proposals. There's ways to also make the public outreach process serve the purpose of community building and consensus building. And so that's just like an additional step to just getting feedback. You know, what can they do during the process of getting our feedback? You know, can they have an event? Can they do some, you know, some different things that they can do that can do community building and just get people excited about the project, and then also to build consensus so that, you know, it's not like, oh, they got what they wanted, we didn't get what we wanted. I think that it's a very nuanced thing to continue moving forward and making sure everyone feels excited about the end product. So those are my suggestions, but, you know, I'm here to listen to what you would like me to ask. I get 3 questions that I get to add into the mix.
And I'll walk around with the microphone, so any input for Candy?
So I think you're definitely off to a great start with these, but having interviewed a lot of people for a lot of different things, I can see some really generic responses coming from these unless you get really specific. And so I would recommend that we change this first one to be, there are numerous stakeholders in the redevelopment of the National Western Center with potentially conflicting needs and wants. Identify those stakeholders and what you believe to be potential needs and wants, and how will you prioritize those needs. I think that it's the part that I added about what do you believe to be the potential needs and wants is important, because it will reveal to you how on target they are with what the potential conflicts might be, so that you don't get a generic answer. On the second one, for explain in detail how you intend to conduct public outreach, I think you could also get a really generic answer on that unless you ask them to share past experience with successful or unsuccessful public outreach, and how do they plan to modify that, and then communicate those results.
Can you say that one more time? Hold on. Sorry.
On that second one, I think you really want to know what they believe to be successful or unsuccessful, and how do they know that?
Got it.
Because public outreach, I could see you just getting a really generic response about, oh, flyers, meetings, blah, 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 blah. Like, we want to know why those have been successful or unsuccessful in their perception. And I think we can do better with the third one, but I would invite the team to co-create a third question.
So it was, why do you believe certain things? Got it. I have an injured thumb, and I've realized how much a person has to have their thumb.
It's true for evolution.
I got it. I'm not kidding. It's just every time I go to, and I'm left-handed too, so it's traumatic.
Who has a phone? Oh. Is there anyone else, since Candy wants to co-create? Hey, next one.
I was waiting for other hands to go up. I really endorse what Candy just said in both cases, and you speak my mind. I appreciate that. I would get even a little more specific about the intended public outreach to say, what is your understanding of the, talk about your assessment of Denver's public outreach through the continuum of citizen engagement in building our city. What do you feel you can do better than what's been done, and why is that important? Like that, to get real specific about their Denver experience, so that the answer has to do with the Denver process, not just their experience on projects. So if we could go in that direction a little bit.
I love that, and maybe start the question out with what is the difference to you between community building and public outreach, because there is a difference.
And I would extend that to the third question.
Hold on just a second.
Don't forget it's taped. I mean,
I know.
Yeah, but that's cool. That's good.
So you said the difference between outreach, and I want people to be able to look at this and talk about it in a little bit too.
Sure,
so.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
As soon as AE's done, I'll get you a number.
Got it. Okay. So you said on the third one now, AE, go ahead.
I'm blanking out, so let's just pass it on because I don't. There's a relationship to the third one. It can be.
And I wouldn't preference Denver experience. I guess that's kind of what I'm struggling with this last comments. It might be better to have some fresh experience. And I think that the public outreach recently that we've seen from the city has had its problems, and I will leave it there.
Or maybe what is their understanding of how Denver has, because they should know.
Because it's not preference, yeah. It's not preference.
You know, just because they've had a Denver experience, I don't know, that might even be problematic.
Yeah.
I'm being vague, but I think that we shouldn't say, oh, you've got experience in Denver. That might be a problem. Anyway, just due to the series of public outreach that this community has been through on some projects. I won't go into detail what those are, but we can talk about it if you want.
Yeah, maybe we should. Because I also, and that's a very specific example of something that you feel has not been done well. I'd like to know more of the specifics. So if I hear that, in the
Yeah,
answer.
I'll be happy to talk about it, but it has been problematic. It might be good that there's a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just advise if anyone has any background information they think Anne should know, that they should contact her offline with that.
Happy to.
Yeah, I want to just be really very clear that with respect to what Drew's saying, which is important as well, that I was not intending to say a preference with using the word preference when you used it. I just want to be clear that when I say Denver, I'm talking about the aggregate constituency that is intended to be reached, which is what any strategy is. What we're looking for in that question is, do you understand the Denver constituency? And how does and I think, and I would advocate for somebody to be at least familiar with the history of strategies in Denver so that they're able to be at the empathetic level with what the experience has been on some level. And that doesn't mean that they can't come from a completely different area. So I just want to try and make that distinction, and that helps me recall a little bit what the relationship was to the third question there, which was explain how your intended public outreach also serves the purpose of community and consensus building. I would almost put it to the point of how can, kind of a little bit of the same type of thinking Candy was talking about, where it's what is the can you explain why it's important that consensus building is part of the relationship between what your role would be and I think it's very good it's starting to show up in proposals. I strongly myself feel that all of these consultants and everything they should feel part of what their job is consensus building. So it has to do with understanding the aggregate experience of the organism of the constituency. And that has to do with not just being on Denver projects, but being able to assess that enough to have that empathy. So.
Anyone else?
I don't know if this would be appropriate at this time. And incidentally, I agree with what both of you have expressed, and you as well, Drew. And along those lines, maybe we ought to be a little more specific as to how they're going to actually go about this and possibly put a dollar amount on it.
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Well, that's why I say community outreach. Do they make a public announcement through some entity, or are they willing to set $100,000 aside for specific community outreach? And I just use that as a...
Who is they in this case?
Whoever you choose.
Well, you know, so...
And that's why I say maybe it's not appropriate this time.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to proceed, at least for me, and I share your feelings. This community, all three of us across the line here, have, and it's the same old story. You know, we've been negated for a long time. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And community outreach has got to be more specific. I think it's a great opportunity to do so. And the only way I could understand that being done is how much are they willing to spend as part of their involvement in reflecting their needs and wants in their project.
I think the right way to think about this, John, is that this group can help identify that as a need for the community. So as they go forward with the public outreach process, that they are continuously aware of where they can, in the planning process, insert that into the planning process. The group that's being hired to do the placemaking is not the money people. They're not.
I understand.
Yeah. So, but they are certainly the people who are going to be reflecting the needs of the community. And so we want those ideas in the plan.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And the only reason, and I've said this before and I've said it publicly, why I'm on this committee, obviously, to support the National Western. But I see this as the only opportunity for our neighborhoods to piggyback a successful ride. Not a rodeo, but we're going to go for a ride anyway. And we need to do that. And whoever gets the go-ahead needs to understand that they're going to have to put the money where their mouth is. And I think it behooves us as community people to make sure that we just don't let it pass again. There's too damn much money involved in this project for us not to get our fair share. And it's time, way past time, that we make that clear at every level. And that's one of the reasons I supported you being on this effort, because I know that you'll do a good job at representing us. And
yeah,
we need to make sure they understand that we have a hammer and we'll use it if we need to at the appropriate time. We're not going to let this one pass. And people need to understand that. City people need to understand it. The consultants need to understand it. This is the best chance we've got, and we can't lose it.
I understand.
Okay. And I've got every bit of confidence that you can do that.
To John's point, I think what we did during the master plan process, I think was kind of a model.
Yeah.
You know, we had work sessions, extra sessions where we met at night and we talked. It was a lot of fun, but I think we got a lot accomplished. Can we have a similar process during placemaking where we have, you know, a series of meetings where, you know, they can present their plan and we can all talk about what we like and don't like? That ought to be included, Anne, in their proposal, is a series of meetings with this group and even open it up if necessary. I think that's
so I will
necessary.
tell you this, that in most of the proposals, you know, the public outreach piece follows the entire timeline. So of the placemaking effort, the design effort. And so, you know, they know that there's times all along the way. And so the question is, what's the format? What are those formats? And we need to make sure those format works. So that's kind of, I mean, you guys have given me a lot more detail, but, you know, how does the public outreach also serve that purpose of community and consensus building? The only way that you can do that is to bring people together and have those sessions, right? So that's what, you know, I want to hear. I don't know how much I feed them or am able to feed them. You know, I'm going to try to feed each of the groups as they give the answer. You know, they give the answer, then I say, oh, so you mean that this is what it's going to look like, blah, blah, blah. They don't directly say it. And so, you know, hoping to inform the process at the same time of interviewing them. So that everyone who's interviewed gets the idea of what that outreach needs to look like.
You know, and I know that our questions have been focused on outreach, but I just want to throw this one thing in before I hand it over to Candy, is that, you know, I mean, I have been doing a lot of reading on gentrification over years and years and years. And one of the things that I think should be part of this, and I'm not sure where it works into this, is how can placemaking be used to mitigate against the more negative aspects of gentrification? I'm not sure how that works into any of these questions, but I definitely think it needs to be part of the dialogue with whoever's being interviewed.
So I just want to, I agree with that, and I also want to build on what John said, because I do think that resources are important. I believe that this will be well-resourced. I would challenge Anne to make sure that what you're getting at is really a very clear understanding of the difference between public outreach, consensus building, and community building, because I think that most of the failures in both use of resources, consensus building, and community building on the city's behalf have been because there is not a clear understanding of the difference between those three things, and so it's been a very unilateral approach to informing community. So public outreach is that, right? It's a very, very much, I have this information, I'm going to give you this information. There's no back and forth, and I think that is what has failed. And I think that is where there's also an incredible lack of cultural competency on the city's behalf, because it's not always about just the dollar amount, it's about how you use those dollars. For example, no offense, but Erica's position could be used in a completely different way. You spend a lot of money on the flyers, the papers, the things that get printed and put on doorsteps. More money than if you actually used a position to do the one-on-ones, to do the door knocking. You spend more money having a meeting that people come to instead of using a position to map where meetings are already happening in the community and actually going to those. So I think that using resources effectively is something that you should try and tease out to figure out how they plan to throw money at this situation and make sure that they know what works and what doesn't work.
Thank you. A lot of good input. Anything else for Anne?
It's just kind of a structural question, actually. Yeah. Regarding the applicant, is this that there's a lead firm and then there's a a constellation of firms? Is that how it's coming in, or are these self-contained firms?
Yes, there's a lead firm who responds to the RFP, but then they have an entire team of people with different skill sets that they bring as the entire team.
The reason I'm asking that regarding this conversation is that what I'm seeing in reading some of these in the selection process, then the outreach team would be a particular firm and that's their specialty. And I just want that to be visible to everybody because that's the one valid, one of the decisions that was recently made, and I read the final, after the fact, you can read the final things. The outreach firm there was one outreach firm in all 3 applications. Mm-hmm. And that is of concern to me, and so I do like the idea, this supports the idea of new blood, but I also just want to ask if in the matrix, then I assume there's a matrix, right? The numbers, things are going to be weighted on the questions, and I'm just only now beginning to understand. Can there be a component to weight the constituency engagement? What I saw in the ones I read was that the outreach was a certain percentage of the budget, and this was a certain percentage, and something else was a certain percentage. So I'm wondering if and then the final decisions are sometimes 2 or 3 points apart on the matrix, but the matrix seems to rule. So I'm wondering, when I was looking at that going, I feel like there should be a weight put on the ability to do the activation of consensus and engagement of the broad constituency. Does that make any sense to you, what I'm saying?
And I can talk to Kelly about that and see if we can do that.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've given Ann really good input. One thing I am going to ask, just for the sake of making sure none of the potential questions leak their way out of here, if you could return Ann's list.
And don't post the tape until after the...
back over to us. Although I trust all of you all.
Do you think it's a good idea not to post
but the lawyer in me is like, give me the paper back. So please give the paper back.
This is an incredibly competitive... Thank you.
I know, but someone who's been around a lot of lawyers who do government contracting work, it's one of the most litigious areas of law that there possibly is. And they will find any way to pick at the process if they don't get what they want.
You should put that, you should mention that in the beginning. You should mention that in the beginning because there are those of us that took notes on that.
Well, I apologize for that.
Just as a future thought.
I would have asked for your notes back as well.
Well, if there's notes, why don't you give them to me?
That's fine.
I'll give them
my
to Ann.
handwriting's not going to do any good.
I'll give them to Ann. So we'll move on to, are there any community announcements or public comment?
I have the flyer for the Heron Pond picnic. If it's there, I'll hand that out to you.
Okay, anyone else? You just go to that microphone or take this one.
Hello, Michael Samila. Tomorrow night there is a fundraiser for the promenade, the River North Promenade at Blue Moon. Tomorrow night starting at 4 o'clock, goes till 7.
Thank you. Betty, could you take this over to Betty?
Yeah. This is maybe kind of looking back at, but I think when Candy mentioned a date, I think it's very important, but there are so many dates kind of rattling around. We're not really sure, but if we can find something, because Elyria actually is the one that brought the livestock industry to Elyria. It started it all, it came in on the trains, and so Elyria actually started all of the transportation businesses. And I think a day would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a request of the NW of NewCo.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want me to use the mic or not.
Yeah.
I would like to request that NewCo put up an organizational chart with the job descriptions and intended impact of all of the staff. I think 2 things. I think it would help for us to understand where the parts fit. I want to tell you, this, the gentleman, and I'm sorry I missed your name, that's here is the mobility. This is very exciting. I want to know more about what you're doing with economic mobility, because we talk so much about mobility just being a physical thing, and that is truly what it's at, as is connectivity, a social thing, not just a built spaces thing. So I would request that, because it's also part of us understanding where the money is going, and it's also part of us understanding what are the layers, because it seems sometimes to me like there's so many layers of people being hired as communicators, etc. I'm kind of concerned about it on one hand, but I want to see what the gems are, what the direct relationships can be too. So with that, I hope that we could do that.
I made a note of that.
Liz made a note of that. Michael.
Yeah, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone who was involved with the Garden Place Academy Earth Day this past Saturday. It was a partnership with Comcast, but there were over 300 volunteers out, really, getting their hands dirty, putting trees, gardens, Garden Place Academy. It's a great event, and I just, for the record, just want to give a huge shout out to the principal, to all the volunteers and organizations that participated in that.
And Chris Pacheco and his whole family. Awesome.
And Chris Pacheco and his whole family. Erica Martinez was there selected out. AE was there. But it was a great event, and so kudos.
Thank you. And by the way, happy belated Earth Day. Anyone else?
One last, we have our, tomorrow during the lunch hour here at the National Western.
Tell everybody you're from Clinica. Tell people you're from Clinica so they know.
Jim Garcia from Clinica Tepeyac. We have our fundraiser, the Tortillas for Tepeyac. Mayor Hancock will lead our group of celebrity tortilla rollers at tomorrow's event. So.
And tickets were still available about 4 hours ago, so
How much are tickets?
$50.
$50.
There's community people down at the transportation mobility. The first bucket has been closed. The East 47th Avenue Bridge is on that. And even with a discussion, I would encourage people to go to denvergov.org and get up there and look at the timeline on that, because there's still a little bit of public input available. There's these 15-minute sessions, but you can write letters and you can be talking. Albus Brooks is the president of the executive committee, and you could get stuff to him now. So just keep in mind it's a fast-moving process.
All right, thank you. And seeing that I don't think there are any more comments, questions, anything else like that. Thank you all for coming. We're done a little early, so enjoy your extra 35 minutes. And SAE says you'll get to see the sunset this evening.